Today on St. Patrick's Day, I'm in the Titanic Quarter of Belfast, once one of the biggest shipyards in the world and now reimagined for a new generation. Welcome to Songs of Praise. In today's programme for St. Patrick's Day, Claire McCullum discovers the Christian symbolism of the shamrock and its connection to Ireland's patron saint.
I suppose, like Jesus himself, St. Patrick used those things that were around him to teach the people about who God was.
I hear the story of a Christian's final act of love as the Titanic went down.
He would have known the ship was doomed at that stage. He actually gave his life jacket away.
And I meet the new residents of Titanic Quarter who, inspired by their faith, are building a community of welcome to people from all over the world. Standing over 95 meters tall, it's no wonder these great cranes are named after the biblical characters Samson and Goliath. They serve as monuments to what was once one of the greatest shipyards in the world. Now regenerated as Titanic Quarter, this area celebrates Belfast's heritage, but also provides a place to remember. These posts and lawns mark where Titanic was built and commemorate more than 1,500 people who tragically lost their lives when she sank in April 1912. We have wonderful music from all over Northern Ireland, and we begin in Enniskillen with that great hymn that bids us, "Oh, come to the Father through Jesus the Son." Shipyard dominated this area of Belfast for well over a century. As the shipbuilding business declined, the historic offices where so many great ocean liners were designed eventually closed in the 1980s. Rodney McCulloch was the last person to leave. So Rodney, these are the doors that you closed for the final time in 1989. How did that make you feel?
It was with great sadness that I closed that door because the building held so many memories. Such a beautiful building. But closing the doors was the end of one chapter and the opening of another chapter in the history of Ireland above.
And through here we have the drawing rooms.
Through here we have number 1 drawing office. Very majestic.
The office buildings have recently been converted into a luxury hotel, but the rich history has been preserved.
At its peak of the company, this building controlled the livelihoods of 30,000 here in Belfast. This is where the contracts were signed for the like of the White Star liners, the Olympic and the Titanic.
And with all these people, I assume that there was a big sense of community. Did faith play an important part in that?
What you would have found throughout the works, in the production shops and the fabrication shops beside the slipways, you would have found gospel meetings, you would have found prayer meetings, you would have found Bible classes. So there was a very deep faith expression throughout the company. And that also crossed over to the actual production. Harden Wolff was very adept in introducing new lines of business. And an example of that, in the late 1800s, Harden Wolff used part of the business to actually build churches.
Known affectionately as wee tin churches, some of these wood and metal structures are still in use today.
And how do you feel to see this place now?
It's a beautiful building, beautiful spaces. It's probably the most historic building within the city of Belfast. And I'm proud to have been associated with it.
It was from designs drawn here that Titanic came to life. At the time, she was the largest moving object on Earth. This is the SS Nomadic that ferried passengers to the Titanic before that fateful maiden voyage. Maureen McKinney has a very personal connection to the tragic story.
My grandfather worked on Titanic's construction. He was a joiner. He worked here in Belfast for 55 years.
Now, obviously, through all your research, I'm sure you've come across many, many stories of the different passengers on board that maiden voyage. What's the standout story for you?
What comes to mind is a man called John Harper. He was a pastor. He was invited to Chicago to Moody Institute to preach there. So he had actually booked passage to go on the famous ship Lusitania, but his journey was changed and he went on Titanic. Along with him was his 6-year-old daughter, Nana. When the ship hit the iceberg, John Harper wakened his daughter and he brought her up on deck and they were put in lifeboat 11. He stood back knowing that it was women and children first. We know that as the ship went down, he was imploring people around him to become Christians, to give their lives to God in their last moments. He would have known the ship was doomed at that stage. He actually gave his life jacket away. He was relatively young, 39. He could have tried to save his own life. But it speaks to me of, in this day and age where there's so much selfish and everyone is doing things for themselves, that it is important to be able to bear witness of a Christian faith, of a selfless life for others.
We